We must allow David Lammy these brain farts. But I mean, yes, again, it's just woeful, isn't it, Rita? It's just woeful. We have prime ministers, deputy prime ministers of just such a low caliber. And they really do think that if they call mainstream politicians who they're trying to beat at the ballot box and in the polls, if they call them Hitler, flirting with Hitler Youth, fascist, Nazi, everything else, populist. If they do all of that, then they can win the argument. It's absolutely woeful.
Something very dark and very chilling has happened in British politics in the past 48 hours. Slippery Starmer and Labour, knowing they have nothing else left given historically low polling and a mutinous party, are importing political violence and the language of political violence to the UK. Less than a month after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, they're following the exact playbook of the Antifa-inspired American radical left, right down to false claims of Hitler Youth racism and Nazis.
He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. Because whilst we must come together to fight reform with everything that this movement has, we must go into that battle armed. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy.
Yes or no, is Nigel Farage a racist?
I answered your question. I'm not going to play the man. I'm playing the ball as our leader did. I will leave it for the public to come to their own judgments about someone who once flirted with Hitler Youth when he was younger. That is for the public.
So let me just be very clear about what's going on. Someone needs to say it. If they can't take out Nigel Farage politically, they hope to inspire a nutter to do so by nefarious and violent means. And if you don't think there's a deep state plot against the Reform UK leader, then what the hell explains officials deciding, just weeks before this onslaught, to cut his security by 75%?
Is clearly designed to incite violence against Nigel. And I also want to share this morning some new information. And I thought long and hard about whether I should share it. I lost some sleep last night thinking about it. But I think it is in the public interest that they know that just about 2 weeks ago, the authorities slashed the size of Nigel's security detail by 75%. The authorities cut Nigel's security detail by 75%. 2 weeks ago. That's why so many of us around Nigel are so worried. Now, I want to be clear and reassure people who, A, support Nigel, but B, all right-thinking people in this country who believe in sensible democratic politics in this country, that thankfully donors stepped in and have shored up that security, so Nigel is well protected. But the Prime Minister knows exactly what he's doing. This is a Prime Minister who's circling the drain, who, according to a poll this week, is the most unpopular Prime Minister on record. According to a poll this week, the majority of Labour members want to be replaced, and he's lashing out against a man that he knows. Starmer knows he cannot beat Nigel at the ballot box, so he's embarked on the most, I want to say it again, extraordinary, coordinated attacks to incite violence against the man who is the bookmaker's favourite to replace him at number 10 Downing Street. It's disgusting, and he should apologise.
Because given the stakes, I'm not going to mince my words. I will say this, and there are millions of people, no doubt, around the country who support Nigel, who agree with this. And frankly, many who don't support Nigel who would agree with this. If anything was to happen to Nigel, we will hold Keir Starmer squarely responsible.
Now, look, I have massive issues with Zia Yusuf, and I understand the fury of Tommy Robinson supporters who say the Reform UK lies about him have also put his security at threat. So let me just say that from the outset. But Yusuf is right when it comes to this situation with Farage. He explained Keir Starmer knows he cannot beat Nigel Farage at the ballot box, so is using the mighty megaphone of government to incite violence against him. I don't know how he sleeps at night. The Prime Minister and his cabinet are engaging in stochastic terrorism. Starmer and his goons know what they're doing. Now, stochastic terrorism describes how mass-mediated hostile public rhetoric can incite random, statistically predictable but individually unpredictable acts of violence against a targeted individual or group. The term was coined by a blogger in 2011 and involves demonetization and dehumanization through repeated hostile statements, often on social media to provoke violence. While the exact perpetrator remains unpredictable, the likelihood of an attack is statistically increased by the ongoing negative narrative. And let's be honest, that type of terrorism worked when it came to Charlie Kirk. Our friend Connor Tomlinson explained it well, writing, "They call you a racist, a Nazi, or a fascist to put a target on your back. When they call you Hitler, they are telling the lunatics in their base, whoever kills this person would be a hero, just like the soldiers who fought fascism in World War II. Charlie Kirk's murder shows this rhetoric incites violence. Not that David Lammy knows that. He's never had a conscious thought in his life. He's just stringing talking points together into an incoherent sentence and putting Nigel Farage's life at risk in the process. But if there was any thought that after yesterday Labour was going to tone down its rhetoric, this morning's conference speech from a truly deranged Mad Ed Miliband, launching egregious attacks on both Farage and Elon Musk from the podium, proves otherwise.
The threat from reform goes way beyond their climate-denying agenda. You see, the truth is, I wish Nigel Farage was just the snake oil Tory city boy we've known about for years. He's actually morphed into something even more dangerous. He's now a key part of a global network that wants to destroy the ties that bind our communities and our way of life. And I can sum up the threat for you in 2 words. Elon Musk. Elon Musk. He incites violence on our streets. He calls for the overthrow of our elected government. He's an enabler of disinformation through X. He thinks he can tell us how to run Britain. Conference. We have a message for Elon Musk. Get the hell out of our politics and our country.
A weirdo, a freak, a hypocrite, but this is very much a strategy. And one of the country's top barristers, Stephen Barrett, believes it is illegal. He writes, Ed Miliband demonising both Nigel Farage and Elon Musk. This is legitimising political violence and a disgrace to Britain. After the Prime Minister, other ministers, and particularly David Lammy's disgraceful remarks, othering their political opponents, I am calling on Merseyside police to investigate. I think that they are inciting violence. We have investigated tweets less sinister. Lammy needs to resign ASAP. Now watch him explain why.
Well, I think David Lammy must resign immediately. And then I would call upon Merseyside police to carry out an investigation into the Labour Party for that there are a large number of offences, and I don't want to get bogged down in technicalities, that the public broadly know as incitement to violence. And I think we've seen them at the Labour Party conference. I think that's disgraceful. I have friends in the Labour Party. I have friends on the left. I hope that they are utterly shocked and disgraced. If the Conservative Party does the same thing, I'll be back on to tell you how disgraceful the Conservative Party is. But it's about time that we put down a line in the sand to protect the country that we actually want to be. And I think most of us, regardless of our politics, actually want to be us. You know, Britain. We are a thing. We, famously portrayed by Tolkien as the Shire full of hobbits. That's what we are. We want our beautiful, lovely country back. And we're not going to get it.
But there is a dual purpose to the ongoing attacks on Farage, as Wall Street Mav pointed out. They're setting the scene to justify jailing him. Now, thus far, I think Nigel's response has been calm and measured, even though he described Lammy's attack as vile to me yesterday, and has even received support live on air from Labour peers. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
To constantly call us racist, he even dared at one point to start suggesting there was prejudice on the basis of skin colour, something for which there is absolutely not a single shred of evidence. And here's my worry, Bev. You know, I'm big enough and ugly enough and have security and all the rest of it to look after myself. But if you incite in this way by calling people racist, surely that has shades of what happened to my late friend Charlie Kirk, who they constantly called racist and Nazi, bigoted, transphobic, all of those words. And I genuinely am fearful. I'm fearful for our elected officers around the country. I'm fearful for our campaigners. I think, frankly, what Starmer has done is despicable, beneath contempt. I do think on this, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet have sunk into the gutter. And I think what they've done is insightful and dangerous. And I say that especially in the wake of the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk just 3 weeks ago. He was called lots of nasty names. And we've already had a situation of violent attacks on Reform supporters. And I really worry this will embolden the radical left. It will embolden those who wear face masks and are quite prepared to use violence. And I think, frankly, what the Prime Minister has done is a total disgrace. I hope he wakes up tomorrow and he's ashamed of himself. That is my opinion. I believe it very strongly. Good evening. You were quite happy with what the Home Secretary had to say.
Oh, very. But first of all, before we go any further, I'm very proud to be Labour, and I'm very ashamed about the accusation of calling you a racist. I am going around this conference and I'll be writing articles absolutely disputing that. I know, Nigel, that you are not a racist. I know that you spend a huge amount of your time expelling racists from Reform. So please accept my personal apology, not from the party but from me, and I'm honoured to be on GB News. I'm honoured, actually, to think of you as a friend. So that's a disgrace to me as well.
Thank you, Morris, for that. Now, we don't agree on everything, but thank you for that very much indeed.
And it's looking like David Lammy's non-apology apology. It's looking like it may not be enough to save him from a lawsuit after he used long discredited theories to suggest that Nigel Farage, there he is, this teenager in Dulwich, was a Nazi. As Concerned Citizen posted yesterday, David Lammy says, I'm not commenting on whether I called Nigel Farage racist. That was a long time ago. I'm focusing on his policies. Today, David Lammy, Nigel Farage was part of the Hitler Youth movement. Now, I have to be honest, the apology, and I'm really going to say apology like that because it was a non-apology, from Lammy on the British Bashing Corporation was pitiful.
Also suggested that Nigel Farage had flirted with Hitler Youth. Now, the party have said that's totally untrue, that that's libelous, contemptuous. What did you mean by that?
I think there were some articles circling around from the teacher, but I wasn't at school with Nigel Farage. I don't know what songs he sang at school, so I'm happy.
You have no evidence for that suggestion.
I'm happy to clarify. I did say it's for the public to make up their mind, and I did also emphasise that let us play the ball, not the man. So it's not my intention to play the man, Nigel Farage. In fact, I did a show with Nigel Farage on LBC a few years ago. Let us concentrate on the ball, the policy, which is the deportation policy, his policies on the NHS, which I think is to charge, and his policies on lowering tax cuts, which would lead to the bond markets, so not the man.
To be totally clear, you're pulling back from that comment that you made?
He has denied it. And so I accept that he has denied it, and I would like to clarify that position because in the end, the Prime Minister was keen for us to focus on the policies, not the individual.
Let's talk.
Well, that's not good enough, Lammy. You've called him a Nazi. Joe Rich surmised Labour's Deputy Prime Minister is going to have to prove this or endure a very expensive and humiliating climb down. McSweeney and Starmer are furious because this is now the headline from party conference and it's absolutely ridiculous. And Will Kingston added, I am generally against politicians suing other politicians for defamation. In this case, I'm willing to make an exception. Farage should take Lammy to the cleaners. And of course, there's always a tweet, isn't there? There's always a tweet exposing the hypocrisy of these goons. And in the past, Lammy claimed to care a lot about discourse and politics, writing, no surprise the conspiracy theorist thugs who harassed Keir Starmer and I repeated slurs we heard from Boris Johnson last week at the dispatch box. Intimidation, harassment and lies have no place in our democracy and they won't ever stop me doing my job. Now, it's really difficult, isn't it, to actually know how to look at David Lammy. Like, do we just treat this guy as the embarrassment and the clown that he is, or do we actually understand that it's really dangerous? Well, I think Douglas Murray summed up well why sometimes we should take the former approach.
Expanded. What is he on about there? And what about this turning down the temperature and not having this rhetoric that could lead to violence? Have we forgotten that already?
Oh, of course they've forgotten it. That stuff never lasts more than a few minutes, if not a few hours. You could see on David Lammy's face there as he said it, he was trying to work out whether he should go there. His eyes flickered for a moment as he was trying to work out whether this was the one to wheel out. David Lammy, as I've never stopped enjoying reminding people, appeared on Celebrity Mastermind some years ago and asked in the general knowledge round which king succeeded Henry VIII, answered Henry VII. Now, that being said, it's perfectly possible that in David Lammy's mind, Nigel Farage, as a boy, travelled back in time to flirt with joining the Hitler Youth. And so we must allow David Lammy these brain farts. But I mean, yes, again, it's just woeful, isn't it, Rita? It's just woeful. We have prime ministers, deputy prime ministers of just such a low caliber. And they really do think that if they call mainstream politicians who they're trying to beat at the ballot box and in the polls, if they call them Hitler, flirting with Hitler Youth, fascist, Nazi, everything else, populist. If they do all of that, then they can win the argument. It's absolutely woeful. And they would hate that if it was done to them. And I suppose at some point, people with fewer morals, or indeed the same morals as them in these matters, as little adherence to truth, might well play that round at them. And wow, how they'll scream then, you know?
But there was no contrition from Slippery Starmer, even when he appeared on Farage's employer, GB News, this morning.
With that, OK, Nigel Farage has accused you of inciting violence against reform, putting a target on the backs of people backing reform, maybe with a reform rosette. Are you risking inflaming tensions, particularly after the murder of Charlie Kirk?
No, not at all. There is a political fight that has to be had, and it's about the future of our country, because at the next election, the fight will be different to the fight at every other election. It won't be Labour versus the Conservatives. It'll be Labour versus Reform, and that means patriotic national renewal with Labour, where we go forward as the whole of our country, versus the toxic division and decline of Reform, which I think will tear our country apart. I, as Prime Minister, want to serve the whole of my country, my beautiful, tolerant, diverse country that I believe in.
And indeed, his obsession with Farage actually saw Starmer use that interview to launch a bizarre new attack on the Reform UK leader, suggesting the invasion of the channel is because of what he described as Farage boats.
Point out to Nigel Farage and others that before we left the EU, we had a returns agreement with every country in the EU. And he told the country, make no difference if we left. Well, he was wrong about that. These are Farage boats, in many senses, that are coming across the channel.
And legal net migration, that will come down to under your government.
Yes, if you look at, well, we got the Boris wave, didn't we? Yeah. Immigration went up fourfold under the Conservatives in 5 short years. It's unbelievable. And we are bringing it down. You've seen those numbers coming down. Of course, it's right to say that many people come here to contribute to our society, but the numbers need to come down, and we're bringing them down.
I mean, the guy's just, you know, ludicrous. It's absolute bullshit. And I love this from UKIP, by the way. Nick Tanconi and UKIP proving that actually, with a bit of tough action, the boats could, of course, be stopped. But first, if you're anything like me, you've spent so much time trying to find the perfect skincare treatments for your face, only to realise you've been neglecting the skin on your neck. But as I've got older, I know that's a massive oversight because the neck is on display all the time, yet lots of folk just treat it as an afterthought in their routine. And I know I'd fallen into that trap. And what's been interesting actually is since starting this campaign with Go Pure, I've spoken to many in our Outspoken audience, many women who tell me that they know the skin on their neck is thinner, more delicate and less oily than facial skin, and they need specialized care, but they just don't know where to get it from. And so I have to say, that is why Go Pure is the answer. It is an absolutely beautiful product. This is the Go Pure Tighten and Lift Neck Cream. And it's transforming the lives and necks of women and some men too, all across the globe. So let me tell you about this gorgeous product because I saw a noticeable difference within just weeks. Oh, and by the way, Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off Go Pure if you use the code DAN, that's D-A-N, at checkout today. So just head to gopure.com/Dan, use code DAN, and you're all set. But what's so amazing about Go Pure is that its proprietary firming complex is actually designed to visibly firm and smooth the skin on your neck and chest in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. In a consumer study, 100% of users said their skin looked more supple, 97% noticed a firmer appearance. Indeed, Go Pure's full line of science-backed skin and body care have delivered for over 100,000 real women with real results. It's dermatologist recommended, cruelty-free, plus with over 1 million jars sold, I don't think you can say this is a beauty secret anymore, right? Because it's not a secret, if you get what I'm saying. So, tighten, lift, and restore elasticity in your neck because your skincare routine shouldn't stop at your jawline. And for that limited time, Outspoken viewers and listeners get 25% off Go Pure using the code DAN, D-A-N, at checkout. Just head to gopure.com/Dan, use the code DAN, and you are all set. Quick favor too, after you buy, when they ask you where you heard about Go Pure, make sure you tell them it was after watching Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
You shall not pass! 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 You shall not pass!
But back to the Labour campaign, suspended MP Diane Abbott, the first to cry victim at the smallest hint of criticism, despite being a nasty racist herself, continued the BBC onslaught against reform on Newsnight, again with no pushback from the state broadcaster.
He's only got 5 MPs, and the danger is, I'm all for people giving him a good kicking, where Streeting did that this morning, but the danger is if you give him too much free publicity, you turn him into a bigger figure than he is. The thing about reform is I'm old enough to remember the SDP. At one point the SDP had massive polls, all the mainstream papers supported them, they had all the stars of the era, and their polling lead collapsed. And you've got to remember, this is Nigel Farage's 3rd party, and I think people shouldn't be too frightened of his polling lead because he can be beaten.
That prompted Farage ally Andy Wigmore to respond, actually copying in the Met Police, writing, "What the fuck? This is as good as inciting violence against Nigel Farage." Yusuf added, "If someone said this about a Labour MP, the media would go into meltdown. The appalling BBC didn't even challenge it and now tweeted out for more airtime. Absolutely disgusting." Now, what is clear to me today is that there is genuine fear within Reform UK that they are now having targets put on their back as a result of these dark new attacks. Lee Anderson wrote, "They've spent the past 3 days calling a third of the electorate racist, and to top it off, they wheel out this idiot to make outrageous claims it's politics of the gutter." Then when Labour ministers Mike Tapp and Torsten Bell labelled Farage a snowflake, adding he doesn't like to be held to account for his racist policies, it is his divisive rhetoric and his grifter politics. Well, bad luck, because there's a lot more to come. Richard Tice replied, "Do you condemn violence? If so, why are you inciting it?" And this was very interesting to me. Charlie Kirk's UK arm of Turning Point even weighed in. And these words should matter given what just happened. Writing, "Labour openly ally with violent left-wing thugs. Is anyone surprised they use terminology that incites violence against their political opponents? Shame on you." Party chairman, Reform's chairman David Bull, and the party's Lincolnshire Mayor Andrea Jenkins have both admitted that they no longer feel safe.
As far as I'm aware, Nigel wouldn't have been old enough to be in the Hitler Youth, so I think David Lammy probably needs a history lesson. But again, here we go again. This is the point, which is actually this is guttural politics. And whilst he thinks it's very clever, actually, what this is doing is sowing division and it's sowing societal fracturing. And I think they need to be very careful about what they are doing, because they are alienating huge chunks of this country. People who are passionate, hard-working Brits who want to make this country great again, who want to see a control on the migration crisis. Remember, stop the boats, smash the gangs, all this nonsense. Nothing's happened. 38,000 so far this year, 50,000 since Labour took power. This Labour Party has no policies, no substance and no idea, and it needs to leave office.
They are purposely trying to put the fear of God into the public because they know they are losing votes. And, you know, how dare they? I mean, like, Starmer's saying that Nigel doesn't believe in Britain. What? And its future. What, while Labour are there wrecking it? But how dare, like, globalist Starmer, a WEF puppet, say that about Nigel? Look how I was in Parliament when he tried to stop Brexit, colluding to stop Brexit. You know, he's a globalist. If anybody believes in Britain, it's reform and it's Nigel. And like you said, these abhorrent things about Hitler Youth and as being as a far right movement, this will cause more division on the street. As you said, Charlie Kirk, what happened in America?
As Stephen Barrett put it, if Dame Andrea does not feel safe, then this needs addressing. I refuse to wait until another British politician of any party is hurt. Lammy must go. Merseyside police must act. But of course, I acknowledge that there are two schools of thought here. Rupert Lowe, former Reform UK MP, took a different tack. He wrote, "Get called a racist, xenophobe, Islamophobe, far right. Who cares? Honestly, it doesn't matter. Trust me. They are now just meaningless words. Don't moan, don't bite, don't care. Don't give those words and those who use them so flippantly power over you. This is the way." And interestingly, Elon Musk, and I don't know if he'd seen Ed Miliband's attack on him yet, agreed, adding exactly, "Those attacks are so overused as to make them meaningless." Meanwhile, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I like this actually, he took the Charlie Kirk approach by actually deciding to face down his so-called enemies at the Labour conference.
Nigel Farage is a fundamentally good thing for British politics because...
Would you agree that he's racist?
No, I wouldn't. I think that's nonsense.
Because?
Because being worried about immigration is not racist.
No, it's not just a worry about immigration, is it? It's about some of the things that he said about migrants in particular and about small boat people, which is clearly demonising.
And that's one of the tropes
of racism.
Perfectly reasonable
demonise human beings.
to criticise people who come to this country illegally and try to claim asylum. And
Nobody is illegal.
Well, they're coming on boats illegally, and actually it was illegal until Labour changed the law and made it legal again.
No person is illegal in and of themselves.
We had made it illegal for people to come on small boats.
You made that decision.
Yeah, I backed that strongly. Yes, people who've got to France have absolutely no right to come onto the UK. France is a safe place; they can stay there.
Why do you think people do?
Why do they come here?
Yes.
Because we're a great country. I mean, it's a compliment to us. But we can't take all these people. We've taken far too many people in too short a space of time.
When you say we can't take these
we haven't
people,
got the housing for them. We haven't got the roads for them.
Because you haven't built it.
Well, the Labour Party is doing no better at building housing.
But perhaps it was best left to Tommy Robinson, who responded to this post by Keir Starmer, where he claimed, "We will renew this country until we can say with total conviction that Britain is built for all," by writing, "Britain is not for all and not yours to give away. Call a general election, you and your cronies are finished." Now, the Superstar panel. Brilliant to have Father Calvin Robinson with us alongside Sarah White, who has, of course, been leading the pink protest at Westminster today, which we will be talking about very shortly. But Father Calvin, you also responded to this Keir Starmer claim, writing, "For all? No, thank you. There is nothing racist or xenophobic about protecting one's borders. Do not let these wicked globalists bully you into thinking otherwise. Britain is for the British." I assume you weren't impressed by his speech.
I was not. And people can debate what it means to be British, but the fact of the matter is that Britain is for the British. This idea that it's for all, open to all, is clearly globalist propaganda. If it's for all, then there are no borders. If there are no borders, there is no country. Then what is the point of Britain? What's the point of any country? I don't like that. I didn't vote for anyone that represents that. I don't think anyone did. And so if he wants to remove our borders, if he wants to say that we are no longer a nation of people, that we are just for all, then he needs to put it to the vote. He needs to put it to the people. He needs to have a referendum and or an election. But of course he won't do that. And we know he's petrified because the sharks are circling the water. What I did find interesting about his speech, and pretty much most of the Labour Party conference this week, has been that it's been entirely about Nigel Farage. They clearly see him as a massive threat. They've all become paper or plastic patriots waving flags around that just a week ago they told us were racist and xenophobic. That's how afraid they are. But interestingly, have we heard them mention Kemi Badenoch or His Majesty's opposition once? I haven't.
No, because they are irrelevant. At least for the moment, which is interesting. I mean, I did find the flag wavers hilarious, Father Calvin. I mean, they looked utterly miserable there with their St. George's cross. Sarah White, look, as a Reform UK supporter, how concerned are you about this threat of violence? I mean, you know, Nigel Farage is deeply worried about this. Zia Yusuf is deeply worried about this. I mean, he has effectively said today, if there is an attack on Nigel Farage now, Starmer has blood on his hands.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? He's directly inciting violence towards another person. And like you said, we've seen what happened with Charlie Kirk. These far left, like lunatics that are all suffering with a mental illness, they want to cause harm. And, you know, are any of us safe just because we merely speak out and have a difference of opinion to these lunatics? And it is worrying, because how can the Prime Minister say something like that and get away with it? And shouldn't he be held accountable?
Well, honestly, Father Calvin, I do believe they want to take Nigel Farage out. I really do. I really do, because they're not going to take him out at the ballot box as it stands. Certainly Labour will not. And how else do you explain, Father Calvin, the fact that literally, just as Charlie Kirk is assassinated in the US, at that exact moment, the British deep state decide to strip Nigel Farage of 75% of his security?
That's awful. How bad does that look? They're pretty much saying, have at it, go for him. That's how afraid of him they are. It's shameful, actually. They should be upping his security, and that they should be learning from the lessons that have happened in America, in that if you keep calling people racist, fascist, Nazi, all these horrible words, you keep calling people these, eventually someone will take it into their own hands and end the person because they don't want to see another Hitler, right? And this is what the Labour Party hasn't learned from, or maybe they have. Maybe this is all on purpose. But to see Ed Miliband firstly, it's embarrassing to see him trying to speak tough, but to see him saying these things about Farage and about Elon Musk and pretty much painting them as fair game. Like, you want to take them out, do so. They're evil. That's what they're saying. It's wrong. And in fact, it makes them evil. It makes the Labour Party the extreme left, which is evil, which needs to be denounced and potentially proscribed. And I think it was interesting, that interview with the lawyer as well, that something needs to happen about this. They cannot continue, not just removing the security, but they cannot continue painting people that they disagree with as far right.
I think they are evil, because I genuinely believe this has been a coordinated plot to bring the violence and the language of the violence from the radical left in the US into the UK. And they feel like this is the last throw of the dice, because you just have to look at the polls. And then Sarah White, look at David Lammy today. This is when I just feel so embarrassed about our country. Look at Lammy today, sworn in as Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State of Justice. And just yesterday, he is describing Nigel Farage on the BBC as someone who flirted with Hitler Youth. He is an embarrassment to our country, but I actually believe he's a danger too.
The man's an absolute fool. He blubbers out statements, has no knowledge of what he's going on about. He talks utter rubbish. Look at him there. He just looks like a complete puppet. He looks like something from the Punch and Judy show. And, he comes out with these silly statements that he's got nothing to back them up. I just don't know where he gets his information from. Has he gone to the Beano to just drag something out from there and put a sentence together? Because I don't know what to even say about him. The man's a fool, and how he's got to his position, I really don't know. It's quite alarming that these people are in the positions that they're in, and they are all directly inciting violence to anybody who doesn't agree with them. It is quite worrying that Labour and the left, they are more like Hitler, to be honest.
Absolutely. And the thing is, this is going on all over the country. I am told that Advance UK Wales has just had to cancel an event tonight due to violent threats against the venue. That's just breaking right now. So this is clearly a coordinated campaign now against the right in this country, and it's having the desired effect. And I think it is sick.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.